Dear colleague, welcome. It's Dr. Jack, and I'm so pleased to introduce you to Oasis, our Child and Adolescent Psychiatry Conference. We just held one recently in 2019, and we already have one planned for 2020. Now, the one in 2019 was held at the Wild Dunes Resort outside of Charleston, South Carolina. In fact, everyone gave us such positive feedback about the location, and I loved it too, that we decided to go right back there in May of 2020. So we have a new name, a new look, and a new editorial approach. So why Oasis? Well, let me explain it this way, why we named the conference Oasis. So every year I get to talk with hundreds of clinicians, psychiatrists and other clinicians, and I'm always surprised at the level of stress and frustration that is experienced by so many of us. And the stress seems to grow out of there being too little time and too few resources to deal with the complexity of the problems that our patients bring to us in clinic. And the frustration grows out of this realization that day in and day out, the same problems seem to come up over and over again and never seem to be resolved. And so I thought, well, what are we doing about this as a profession? And then, well, what can I do about it to help you with the stress and frustration? And then I thought about our conferences. But then I asked myself, is a conference the right venue to address all of these stresses and frustrations that we experience? And I came to the conclusion that, in fact, a conference is the perfect venue for the following reasons. It's a time to get away from the daily hassles. It's a time to really think and reflect. It's a time to be together with hundreds of one's fellow clinicians in order to experience the camaraderie and the mutual problem solving. It's really a special experience, especially when it's in a beautiful place like Wild Dunes Resort. And the name Oasis, therefore, really conveys to me a sense of just security, of comfort, of camaraderie, of not being alone with one's problems, being able to engage other people for mutual support. And I really feel that in 2019, what I just experienced less than a month ago was really something special. And so, you know, it can't only be the location or the fact that we're together, but what are we covering in the conference? So I really looked at our editorial approach and realized that we need to expand our focus in order to get to the real sources of the stress and frustration. So I came up with this 5-element model. So element number 1 is our focus on psychiatric disorders and treatments. Now, this is the bread and butter of any psychiatric conference. And so, of course, we do have to talk about, you know, the depressive disorders, DMDD, major depression, the minor depressions, bipolar disorder, ADHD, autism spectrum, and on and on and on. Right? That's very, very important. And looking at new medications, new indications, new cautions and warnings, things like that, new psychosocial treatments. And so we cover that at a master level. We present complex cases, and we provide, our faculty provides detailed prescribing guidance. I really feel that our faculty really rises to the challenge of giving practical advice that's actionable. So that's the bread and butter. But, you know, when we really think about sources of stress and frustration, they usually don't arise from like having to make a decision, do I choose medication A or medication B? So let's look at the next level, element 2. We want to look at the patient and the family holistically, because this is the source of many of our frustrations. Families don't come for appointments, they come late, they don't pay, they're often challenging or bullying of us clinicians. Other family members may work against your treatment recommendations. And then, you know, divorced parents can be a nightmare to work with when they're disagreeing. So we really want to look at the patient holistically and the family unit holistically in order to address those sources of stress. Continuing, element 3, and this is a presentation that I present myself. It's rationalizing clinic procedures. It may sound boring, but it's really at the core of a lot of the stress, because a lot of the problems that we experience are completely foreseeable because they occur over and over, just like what I mentioned a moment ago. Patients not coming in, not paying, not following treatment advice. So a lot of these problems are both foreseeable, and therefore we can, through the forms we use, through what your receptionists say, what your website says, what you say, the treatment agreement that you use, of setting the expectations for patients and their families so that we can nip these problems in the bud. Many of them we can avoid them completely, others at least we can minimize them. So I give you very detailed advice on how to minimize these problems. Not all of them may apply to you, but many will. And that includes like actual scripts, like what you can tell patients and their families, or your receptionists, or what you could put on your website. So I'm very pleased how that presentation turned out. I think it's very, very valuable. We can't stop there. So element number 4 is having the career of your dreams. So the job that you have today, it's unlikely that it'll be the same job that you have a year from now, or 5 years, or 10 years from now. Every career has a trajectory. So from today to the time that you want to retire or even semi-retire, you are going to go through different kind of jobs, and you might even want to shift a direction at some point. And I really want to engage with you and give you that space to consider, your career trajectory. What is the progression of your career going to be like? Because I can tell you one thing, if you don't think about it, no one else will just step in and give you guidance. It really has to start with you. But I want to be your ongoing support as you think these things through. Because I believe every clinician deserves to have a career that really reflects their core life values and their life goals. Values and goals. And it's not only good for each of us clinicians, but it's good for society. Because if we are going to be able to flourish as clinicians, we're going to ultimately see more patients over the life of our career. We're not going to just burn out and give up. And that brings me to element number 5, clinician well-being. So one thing that we incorporate in the Oasis conference is we have these experiential training sessions that we want you to engage in, but it's also something that you can use for your patients' benefit. So we have yoga, sessions of yoga, and then I do guided imagery sessions. So when you attend the Oasis conference in 2020, you can participate live, and if you get the 2019 recordings, you will be able to listen to my recordings of what I presented in 2019. It was a very powerful experience for me because I was not only the one leading the guided imagery, but the other kind of part of me was also participating, and it was a very interesting experience, and I think a very powerful experience. So I would ask you to take a look at the rest of this web page, and you're welcome to purchase the 2019 recordings or save yourself a seat for the May 2020 live conference, again in Wild Dunes Resort outside of Charleston, South Carolina. And if you wish to purchase both, you will get an additional discount. So thank you so much. I hope to see you in 2020 in Wild Dunes Resort. But of course, no matter whether you buy anything or nothing, feel free to be in touch with me. I would love to be a resource for you. Dr. Jack, D-R-J-A-C-K, at AmericanPhysician.com. Thanks so much. Signing off. Take care. It's Dr. Jack. Thank you.